Our first author is Betty Powell, the very brave Betty Powell. And I put her chapter first in the book. Now, when I line the book up, I don't just put them in order of when they turn them in. I really think about what's going to make a good energetic arc for the book. And I wanted to put Betty's story first. The title of her story is She Touched Me. Does that make you all want to read it? It's a beautiful chapter. She Touched Me by Betty Powell. It goes quite back into some of the history of the women's movement, which I think all of us who came on the shoulders of other women who came before us in the women's movement need to really appreciate the gifts that we were given on the backs of our earlier predecessors. So I'm going to read Betty's bio here. We have a beautiful photo here of Betty, which I see your friend Jutta is here, who took this gorgeous photo. Betty delights in guiding highly committed spiritual women to discover and deepen their relationship with the feminine divine and trust their sacred feminine inner wisdom. This path empowers them to find their sacred calling, create spiritually aligned lives, and join in the healing of others and the earth. The feminine divine helped Betty to embody herself as a beloved daughter of the goddess, enabling her to challenge the church. You're going to hear about that, I believe, as one of the second group of irregularly, that's an interesting term, irregularly ordained Episcopal women priests, the Washington Four. She earned the Doctorate of Ministry degree and worked as a psychotherapist and a spiritual companion, helping hundreds of women. So welcome, Betty.
Thank you, Laura. I'm delighted to be here.
It's good to have you. I would love to start with an overview of your chapter, She Touched Me. It's such an intriguing, inviting title. Tell us what this chapter means to you and give us the overview.
Oh my goodness. It's almost hard to say because I kept these stories inside for so long. But my story in the book begins with the day I had invited the first woman who ever identified herself to me as a lesbian. I'd invited her to lunch. I was doing a research project for the church, the Diocese of Washington, on the interface between the women's movement on one side and the church. Like, are they connected at all? Or am I in this wasteland or whatever's going on here? And when this woman, I was in a conscious raising group and she was in this group. And as soon as she said she was lesbian, it went through my head, I've got to interview her for my project. So we're sitting at lunch that day. And all of a sudden, I feel her foot coming up my leg. And my heart just starts going pitter pat. My goodness, what is happening here? I've seen this in movies. I never thought this would happen to me. Is she coming on to me? But I didn't know what to do. It was like, just keep your face normal, just act normal. And I got through the rest of my interview questions and hightailed it out of there. What came from this was that I became much more centered, focused, embodied in my body. And here I was in this, I was a student in seminary. This was in the 70s. I was in this male institution. Everything was so male oriented. Everything was Father God this, Lord that, Jesus this. And I was just yearning for female connection.
Yeah.
And I had been seeking the feminine face of God and hardly finding her anywhere.
Yeah.
And when this luncheon experience helped me to come fully into my body, all of a sudden I could connect with that feminine divine energy on
Mm,
a level that I had never experienced before.
yeah.
And I've got goosebumps just telling you about it because this has continued through the rest of my life.
Yeah. And you write about that in your chapter. So take us back to how you found the space to celebrate the goddess when you were going to a very patriarchal divinity school.
that was a huge challenge because I felt so alone and alienated there. There were few women.
Hmm.
There were two of us in my class and 52 men.
Wow.
And a lot of the classes were in sections, so I would be the only woman in the room,
Right.
which is not very comfortable. And the psychic space, to try to create enough psychic space to seek what I was feeling called to. I didn't know exactly what I was called to, except something about working with people, and it had to be related to my faith. And so connecting with people outside the seminary and now the National Organization for Women,
Hmm.
that consciousness raising group, and
Yep.
making friends there.
Yeah.
The one woman professor at the seminary, she was a goddess sent for me. If she hadn't have been there, Marion Keller, and thank you so much. She helped me survive there. I found a wonderful woman pastoral counselor
Okay.
who just loved me for everything I was and didn't believe in blame and guilt and all these weird laws about women and all this stuff. There were just wonderful things along the way that helped to get me through that very alienating time.
Yeah, and it's interesting how just having one woman professor or one woman counselor, and can you imagine the women before you when that didn't even exist? There wasn't even one professor or there weren't even women counselors. I mean, it makes a difference. It really does. What do you think was the hardest part for you of the journey of going to an all male, mostly male school? It sounds like 50 men, 2 women in your class, mostly male professors, mostly male theology. What was the hardest part of all of that for you?
I think it's partly that sense of alienation that I'd lived with so much, and how hard that made it for me to continue on my path seeking the feminine divine, because I was so yearning to find my path. I
Hmm.
had been born with the name Elizabeth, which means consecrated to God. And I had taken that extremely seriously as a child, and that had stayed with me. And
Okay.
where was this all leading me? I was being shown to go forward, but I didn't know what, not knowing the way, feeling so alienated. That was so hard.
Uh-huh. 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 And what was it like to become a priest? What was your path to priesthood and what did you learn from that?
You made a point about the term irregular. The church was not regularly ordaining women to the priesthood at this time. They just started ordaining women deacons the first year I was in seminary.
Okay.
And that was kind of like a pre-priesthood that you would do for 6 to 18 months, but not to the priesthood. And I had the great opportunity to help put on a conference there for women at the seminary. And a lot of these women were in the priesthood track in their diocese and feeling called and having bishops who were supporting them. And the national church bishops had just met right before this and voted once again to send women's ordination studies to another committee and all of this. And it was just a terrible,
Committees.
yes, yes. And I was so much into, of course, these women should be priests. I heard their stories. I knew they felt so called, and I felt so called to support them.
Yeah.
And it took quite a while to get through all the layers of the alienation, the aloneness, the trying to find my path as a woman in some kind of spiritual movement that could fit within Christianity in some way.
Right.
That was so hard, and to finally get to a place where several women said, we've got to just go ahead and find bishops who will ordain us.
Okay.
And then I became part of the second group. I
Mm.
knew we needed a second group because once could be like a flash in the pan.
Right.
A group of us meeting locally, I just said, we've got to have a second ordination. And by that point, I obviously had gotten on board with the process. I'd gotten to the place of finally saying, okay, I think you mean me,
Okay. To the divine mother,
the
to God,
divine.
to
Yes.
God. How many years did that take from when was it while you were still in seminary or after you left?
How many years did it take? Oh my goddess. I was going through seminary 69 to 72.
Wow.
I went to see the bishop in January 72 to say, I am called to be the priesthood, but it wasn't until September 75, 3.5 years later,
Okay.
that I was finally ordained to the priesthood.
Okay. So a
And
couple
it took
years.
January 77,
Uh-huh.
another year and a half, before the church started ordaining women regularly.
Yeah. So it takes some women being willing to stand up at the beginning and fight a little bit or be the irregular ones to then make it regular. So we're now 50 years later, Betty. Actually, it's 51, I guess, since you were ordained. Life is very different for women. How is that piece relevant for us, would you say?
In my view, the relevance today is that women are still facing incredible challenges to the full rights of our bodies, our minds, our spirits. And the relevance of seeing that there have been sisters before who came together. Thank goodness there were some wonderful male supporters too, coming together and working towards not just social justice, but spiritual justice.
Yeah.
To me, they're highly linked. You can't really have one without the other. So
Social
to
justice and
remember,
spiritual justice.
yes, to remember that history, to know that women who come before have come together and helped to create drawn in men, drawn in unbelievers who suddenly say, well, I may not believe in that, but Betty, I believe in you. It's amazing how on one-to-one conversations can really change things.
Interesting. So one heart at a time, one conversation at a time to change things. That's interesting. That's beautiful. And you said in your bio that you're more of a priestess than a priest. Was that a big change for you, and how did that come about?
Yeah, that was a really big one because in seminary days, we're taught all this Old Testament stuff, and there's all this negativity about the pagan religions of the land.
Right.
And pagan just meant the people of the land, but it became tainted with this negativity. And the Old Testament stories are about putting down the goddess Asherah and other goddesses of those times.
Yeah.
And to say the word priestess implied fertility rites and all kinds of things in this patriarchal kind of language of paradigm. And that just was so hard for me for the longest time. But I knew that whatever I was a devotee of the feminine divine, and that was my mission, to
Yeah.
raise human consciousness of the feminine divine.
Mm.
And to come to the place where I can claim the word priestess today just feels like a tremendous liberation. Yesterday, I joined by live stream these priestesses in England, in Avalon, the place that so many of us have heard about. Mists of Avalon, the stories,
Yeah.
the Glastonbury Goddess Temple had this amazing solstice ceremony. And I was just wholeheartedly there with them as priestess. This is who I am today.
Oh, I love that. This is who I am today. I love that. That's so beautiful. Okay, well, thank you, Betty. Any other final words? Any question I didn't ask you that you would like to me to have?
I want to express so much gratitude for all the women who have struggled along the way with all these issues of social justice and spiritual justice. There had been a few, very few, three who'd been ordained in the Far East, but not here in this country, not for the longest time. The forerunners give us hope. They give us hope. And if there's any way I can give people hope for the future, that's what I want to do.
Mm, thank you. All right. Well, let's all honor Betty. I would invite you to write something in the chat of what you got out of her um, share, words of affirmation for Betty. And remembering when we're done with our three speakers, we will be going to breakout. So you'll have a chance to just share together what you got out of the different talks. So feel free to take any other notes you want in your journal. You are such an inspiration, Betty, says Leanne. Melanie, I saw the ceremony of the chalice well, too. Leanne, Betty, I resonated with your story. I'm grateful your trailblazing and leadership on behalf of us all. Cynthia, thank you, Betty, for paving the way for women in the church and beyond. Jutta, the Philadelphia 11 is an excellent documentary. I'm going to look that up. Thank you for that little piece there. Um, Michelle, thank you, Betty, for your leadership, alignment, and the courage to walk your path with love and authenticity. I enjoyed really reading your chapter. Yes, Amy's mentioning that as well. Melanie, I feel you, Betty. I'm coming from the women's health movement in the 80s. You're a true pioneer for a new consciousness. Hyla's giving everyone in school live the link to join here. Thank you so much, Hyla. Oh, I see some comments from earlier. Thank you for creating the space, Laura. It's a gift, even at the free level. Wonderful support for writers. Absolutely, yes. And Donette, thank you for showing your strength and your belief in yourself. It's so inspired. Thank you. Amy, thank you for sharing your wisdom and trailblazing. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm grateful you pursued your dreams and challenging odds. Sandy, I feel encouraged by your story. It's helpful to young women seeking a spiritual path. Betty, I love your heart and you're such an inspiration. I appreciate your courage. Thank you for your courage. I love that you found your path as a priestess. Yes. Thank you for your bravery. Okay, beautiful. All right, so we're going to honor you. Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Namaste.